Hey friends, welcome back today. And today we're in the studio with Beverly Biehl. Beverly is an energy alchemist, a coincidence creator, and an intuitive visionary. And the reason why she's in studio today is to really talk about our environment, what really matters in our environment, and how to create the best environment for our success, both in our marriage and our family, but also in our work. Beverly, it's so great to have you in studio today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Ashley.
Well, it's great having you in studio because I love what you do. So basically, you clear people's settings, their house, their office, to allow them to have the most successful environment. Tell me how you got into this to begin with.
It's kind of one of those funny stories. Funny in that it's always enjoyable when you get a breast cancer diagnosis at 36 years old with no family history. But the upshot of it was that it forced me to slow down and just kind of calm myself, because I'm a go-getter. I like moving, I like getting out there, I like meeting a lot of people. This really made me slow down and just be for a while. And then during that process, a friend of mine gave me a book on Feng Shui, and as I started to feel better, I began to make enhancements in my house according to the suggestions that this book had. And I'll be darned if all of these interesting things didn't start happening. So that's why I do bill myself as a coincidence creator. So for example, one of the things that I really wanted to have manifest for my family was so that my husband could get a promotion. I hadn't regained my energy enough to go back to work yet, but I thought, gosh, these chemo treatments and everything else, that's kind of expensive, even with good insurance. Next thing I know, after doing the little enhancement to the Wealth Corner, he got phone calls from two people out of the blue. He hadn't spoken to these guys in over a year. And both of them had him pop up as their number one choice for this job opening that they had in their companies. The grand scheme of things, he didn't take either one of those. But after we hung a mirror in the career sector to help give clarity for what is the next step, his existing company gave him a call and said, we're creating this new division to do webinars and online training. Would you like to do that? And he's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what he loves to do. So it wasn't more money, but it meant that he got to stay at home with the kids and help me out more while I was healing from all of that. So I was like, okay, if I can do this with just following a few of these online instructions, imagine if I really knew what was going on, if I really knew what I was doing. So I started taking classes in 2004 and have been enjoying it and helping people transform ever since.
That's some powerful stuff. I'm a big person about energy. I think that energy is relevant. And I know that some folks out there say, what does it mean about energy? Well, one of the things that I find is, have you ever been into someone's house, you ever walked into an office and you felt really just kind of warm and fuzzy and you felt good about being there? You felt like light, maybe you felt energetic, but you felt positive, okay? That's kind of the energy of the environment. Now, we've also been in places, right, where you go into someone's house or you go into an office and you feel maybe worn out, you might feel beaten down, you might feel sluggish or tired. Or the same thing, you go into an office or someone's house and you might feel angry, you might feel upset. So energy is real, just like we all have energy, just like we all, express our energy. So we either express our happy energy, our joy energy, our anger energy, our sadness energy. And so these are all real things. So when you've gone into a place, for example, because I think one of the funniest places that people do a lot of work in is Starbucks. Okay, so you see people in there for hours and hours at an end. You see people that obviously have jobs and careers that are in there. You also see people that have been beaten, they've been beaten the streets trying to get a job. And so you have all this different type of energy, and so I was in there the other day and it was overwhelming to some degree, because it was almost like being in a stadium with 100,000 people talking, and it's like do 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 do, and you got the music going, and then you got somebody dribbling and all this stuff. Obviously it wasn't actually like that, but it just felt overwhelming. How do you deal with kind of places like that with a lot of energy, a lot of different people in different states of their life, a lot of people spending a lot of hours in there? So we know what that means too, because they're because if you've ever been in someone's room that they spend all their time in, you can really feel someone's energy because they're there. How do you deal with a place like that to liven it up, to clean out that energy, and to get things kind of moving and shaking?
Well, obviously, one of the biggest things that you can do to shift the energy in a space is to clean it. I mean, actually clean it. Keep the floors clean. Make sure there's no dings on the walls, and make sure that everything is in good shape. From an energetic standpoint, what that does is it's showing that you care about the space, and that caring then translates in the general energy of the place too. That's why people in communities, if there are broken windows, often translates directly into a higher crime rate. You start to fix things up a little bit, people automatically go, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't continue this downward trend. Maybe I can start making better decisions. But for those kind of environments, if I'm hired to come in and do it, that's a different story. But if I'm just coming in and I'm trying to do some work there myself, I will actively scan the place for where is the least dense concentration of energy. Starbucks actually does a pretty good job of providing different types of surfaces for and heights for people to work on. They always have some type of really soft, comfy couch for those people who need to just come in and relax for those beaten down times when you just need to have a little bit of comfort. But often you'll see the people who are having the business meetings sitting at little taller tables, or the legs will be chrome or skinnier. That's a faster moving energy. A round table is a great way to keep meetings from lasting too long because it's shaped like a wheel. So that will help people go in, you get the job done, and then you kind of spin off and start taking action.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I pride myself in the energy in my office, because one of the things that I've realized is that in therapy sessions, in coaching sessions, people go through a lot of traumatic stuff. We overcome even, childhood trauma, anything from, sexual abuse, mental, emotional abuse, whatever that looks like that we have to get through to be able to get to that next level in our life. But I do pride myself in how I keep my office a certain way. And the way that I've done it, and I'm not a Feng Shui master, is just being appropriate with the energy, cleaning it like you said, and kind of having that intent. And I think sometimes if we don't have the intent, we don't know that it exists, then we really can't do anything about it. So what are some things that you can tell some of our viewers right now on how to, first off, how to be aware that energy really exists? I think that's the first question.
When I first started learning about energy, I was super skeptical. I grew up as a very left brain, very, very analytical, logical individual, and so to start thinking about energy was a bit of a stretch. And again, it took having no energy before I began to understand that, there actually is this other flow that's an unseen flow in our space. And with Feng Shui, it translates literally to wind and water. And that talks about how the energy is moving. So like in water, you can see how the stream is moving. You want to have that gently meandering stream. With wind, you can't see the wind, but you can feel it. You can feel the effects of the wind. You can see the effects of the wind, but you can't see the wind. The assessing both of those is super important because like what you're talking about with being intentional about the energy that you're bringing in, that is impacting the unseen energy, the wind type energy, how the furniture is placed, what colors, what shapes, the patterns, the textures. That's all part of the tangible part, the water energy. When I'm working with a client myself, I look at both the wind and the water aspects. How are things situated? The best way for people, though, to start to get into how is this actually great? Move the furniture in your office. Take the pictures and move from one side of the wall, the room to the other, and see how that feels. You at first it's like, well, wait a minute, no, it has to be here because we all get into patterns, we all get into ruts, and myself included. I know how all this stuff works, but it doesn't mean that my house is always pristine, perfectly uncluttered. No, I'm human.
Well, yeah, that's a good thing, because I think you always want to work with someone that's human on this kind of stuff because you get it,
Yeah.
But that's interesting that you brought up, moving things around or shifting the energy. And yes, we get ourselves in a rut, right? And it's amazing how we can can get ourselves. We could always move it back.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, where does it move? How does it flow? Now, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
I know that a lot of folks are probably in the same position, and I got rid of it a few years back. So a few years back, I used to use, under my bed was like a storage. So you would take the mattress up and it would kind of push up on a riser thing, you know?
Oh, wow.
And so then you could store a bunch of stuff underneath it. Great for a pack rat, okay? And I would store like papers and crap under there, right? And so I remember I was having trouble sleeping about a year into doing this. And having trouble sleeping, I was thinking, okay, it's gotta be that it's not cold enough in the room, it's my allergies, it's something. And what I did is I went under there, I took all those papers out, and I started going through all those papers, those old receipts, all that stuff,
wow.
you know, that you never give to the tax person when you need to. So it's like years later, and I went through it and I threw most of it away, shredded it, recycled it, and I was able to sleep better from that. What's the Feng Shui stuff behind that? Why did that work?
Okay, so first of all, you had two things going on here.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing was you had all these piles of clutter, because that really is all that was. Is just it was clutter.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So here's some good news. Okay. And I want everybody to hear me. Piles are not the problem. There are a lot of people who are horizontal filers. They need to see what's in front of them as they're working on a project. The problem is the stagnation of the piles. And so for you, the stagnation of the stuff that was under your bed, because I mean, that sounds like a very interesting way of doing it, but you had to lift your mattress up to get to it. That's
You're not going to it very often.
You're not going to it very often. So it was the stagnation of all that stuff in there, and even though you weren't necessarily consciously aware of it, the energy of those things that you were trying to avoid dealing with was still seeping up through and impacting your sleep. Because when you sleep, so when you're awake, everybody's much more conscious about, you're going to keep your energy in. We know that it's that those personal boundaries. It's like, I'm not going to shoot my energy into you unless you ask me to, which doesn't really happen that often. But you keep it inside, because you don't want to be unfairly bumping into other people. You want people typically are kind and caring and considerate. But when you're asleep, you're asleep, so you're no longer consciously taking, pulling that energy in.
Right.
And so your energy relaxes. That's why you're able to dream, because your energy, your subconscious, it's been able to be freed from the structure of your waking life. Well, if you're dreaming and your energy is expanding and it's going into whatever's underneath your bed, it's picking up all of the leftover stagnant energy that's there, and it's uncomfortable. It's like trying to sleep in a bed full of cracker crumbs.
Right.
Nobody wants that.
No.
Nobody wants that. So the reason why it is a really good idea to clear out everything from underneath your bed is so that as you're sleeping and your energy is moving and grooving and doing what it needs to do, it has a nice clear path to just, you can take that deep breath, and there's nothing that's constricting you anymore. So I'm glad that you had that experience. So here, let me give you another example, though, of why it's really important to pay attention to what's under your bed. I had a client once who had a car accident many years ago, but before, and so she had some hip issues and was starting to feel better, though. But then she moved to a new apartment. And we were talking, just catching up, probably about 6-8 months later, and she was just horrified because her hip was starting to bother her again.
Wow.
Years before, probably like a couple decades before, she'd had a plaster cast torso made of herself while she was as a professional dancer. It got damaged in the move to her new apartment. Guess where she stored this plaster cast torso?
Underneath her bed.
Underneath her bed. Guess which part of the torso had been damaged?
Her hip.
Exactly, the same hip that she was now having problems with. So she pulled it out from under her bed. She figured out how to get it repaired.
Oh, that's good.
And displayed again, and suddenly her hip began to respond to all the other work that she was doing on it to make it get better.
Wow.
It's like, I still get goosebumps when I think about that.
That's cool.
Now, I also understand that sometimes people are not in positions where they have extra space to store things, and so it has to go under the bed. Number one, do not store divorce papers or any legal documents, anything like that that makes you feel really horrible about life. It's not a great place to store those clothes that either you've outgrown or you no longer want to have those in your closet, because those are kind of negative energy, negative emotions.
Right.
But if you need to store your sweaters, they're the winter clothes, the change, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. But here's a quick little feng shui tip that I give to people: is put a red fabric on top of it, or barring that, red construction paper, but using that with the intention of it being a stop sign. That, okay, this is the energy that is contained here. It's not allowed to filter up to me when I'm sleeping.
Okay.
Yeah. You're still going to sleep better with nothing under the bed, but let's be real. Sometimes you have to.
Sometimes life makes you do it. You have very little storage. So let me ask you just a couple more questions on the feng shui. Because you hear people talking about, is there certain pillars of feng shui that are like the most important things that you need to adhere to? What are some of those things? Like when it comes to people's houses, I know that you hear about a red door. I know those kind of things. What are the things that are really the most? I mean, I know that everything's important and everything has its own place, but what are some of the real no-nos that you see, that when you go to someone's house, you go, oh, geez, no wonder why you're having a crummy year. You know what I mean? I mean, are there some things that just like pop off? You're like, oh my gosh, what are those things? So if any of our viewers have those things going on, they can call you, they can stop it, they can figure it out.
Okay, so the things that a person can control themselves is paying attention to the water in your home. So do you have any leaks? Or is your toilet one of those that you have to keep jiggling it and it keeps dribbling out? Are there any faucet drips? You need to pay attention to this, because water and money in feng shui are intricately linked. There is no way to separate out your abundance. You want to make sure that you have a good flow. Again, remember, wind and water. It's how that is moving. So number one thing, if you're starting to find out that you're having more month than paycheck, then look for the water leaks. Prioritize that. And in fact, if you go to some of these hotel chains they're owned by Chinese companies, Marriott is a good example.
Okay.
And you go next time you go into a Marriott or any one of their properties, and you go into the room when you first check in, notice every one of the drains are plugged up. They're all closed.
Huh.
Pay attention to that, because that helps them to keep the money from flowing out of the property. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to, close up all your drains all the time at home, but, if you're going to be gone for a few days, go ahead and close them up, because what that does is two things. Number one, it symbolically prevents the money from leaving. But the second thing is, if you do have a really slow leak, you'll see that there's some water in there, and so you'll know that you need to go get it fixed. Maybe it's something as simple as just fixing a gasket on the knob, the faucet, or maybe it's something bigger. So again, it's really a good idea to pay attention to that. That also is why you'll hear a lot of talk about keeping the toilet lid down. I use the analogy of energy, qi, as if it were I treat it like as if it were a very curious little child. And maybe one that has ADHD or something, because it's really like, ooh, what's fun? Where can I go? So if you think about how much kids like to look at themselves in the mirror, and a toilet lid open, there's a nice calm surface of water. Oh, look, that pretty kid down there wants to go play with me, and then they fall in and gets flushed away. So just keep the toilet lid down.
Got it.
That's another big one. Now, you mentioned the red door thing.
Right.
When I first started feng shui, I studied a school of thought that was called BTB. It's an acronym for Black Hat Tantric Buddhist. It's more of a westernized version of feng shui, where you take the Bagua map and you orient it towards the entrance of a home. Now, Bagua map simply translates to 9 sectors. It's like a tic-tac-toe grid, and all schools of feng shui use this. You take a space and you divide it into 9 equal sections. Each section then corresponds with a different aspect of your life or the life of your business. And whether it's career and life path, skills and knowledge, family and ancestors, like the legacy that you leave, that's a big one that a lot of my clients are paying attention to, especially if they're in business for themselves. What legacy are they leaving behind? Wealth and prosperity, fame and reputation, love and relationships or partnerships, children and creativity. I like to call that my creative problem-solving spot, helpful people and travel, and then the very center is health. Because again, if you don't have good health, nothing else matters.
Right.
And that's, again, I found that out the hard way. Don't want to do that again. But in that old version of Feng Shui, you want to paint your front door, or that version of Feng Shui, the doorway, the first of those 3 blocks is where the career sector is.
Okay.
Automatically. No, doesn't matter what. And I had a south-facing house. I thought, you know what? I'm going to paint my door dark blue because I don't like black. It doesn't go with the brick because that's a water element, water sector. So I painted my door really dark blue. Oh my goodness. I just thought, there's got to be something. It must just be the whole teenage years. And just kids were blowing up. Jobs were being weird. It seemed cars were breaking down. I left that door dark blue for probably a good couple of years.
Okay.
Thinking, well, I'm doing the right thing according to this, all the books that I'm reading on this BTB stuff. What's going on? A friend finally convinced me, paint it red. Well, red is a fire energy color.
Okay.
The south-facing sector of the Bagua map, when you're using the compass, the Feng Shui compass, it's a fire element. So I finally got my door red. And next thing I know, things start smoothing out. I did not realize I had been shooting myself in the foot. And I'm supposed to be the Feng Shui genius over here. So that was one of the reasons why I actually went back to school and started learning the more classical form of Feng Shui, where I look at the compass directions. And I realized I'm now actually having the earth help me, help my clients, and just so that things are more precise and you're not having to battle 2 fronts. It's just, okay, we're just going to rethink this. And it's made a world of difference for me and also for my clients.
That's amazing. And it's interesting how you kind of came upon this back in 2002 when you were a breast cancer survivor going through that process. Lasting thoughts. I know that, it's so important the environment we're in. And it's and a lot of us try our best. We try our best to keep our houses clean, to keep our offices clean, to do what we need to do. But if you're feeling as though maybe things are just not working out, like you were saying about you went through the process with the door, what are a couple of tips that people can look for to maybe be aware of, or to see maybe something that they can augment, just a small thing that could really change kind of their life success level?
Oh, the number one thing is to pay attention to the stories that the things that are surrounding you are telling you.
Okay.
Because, you've all heard that term nose blind. After a while, you just stop smelling, the certain things in your own home. But we also go, house blind. We don't stop to evaluate, why do I still have these things in my home? Why why does it feel so wrong to let go of certain things? One of the analogies I share with people is, if you're a college student and you have no money, but your first apartment, and you're driving along and you see this coffee table that's on the side of the road. I mean, come on, who hasn't gotten all excited to see something that you could use that's just free, especially when you're poor, in that part of your life where that's learning is your focus. You're like, oh my gosh, this coffee table I feel so rich. I feel so incredibly abundant. And you're like, I'm such a lucky person. Now, you take that same coffee table, if it hasn't changed at all in 10 years, 5 years, whatever, where you're out of school, you've got a good job, you're making money, but yet there's still something subconsciously that says, I can't get rid of that coffee table. Because what if I never have any more money to buy another one? Mm-hmm. If I buy a new one, well, then that's just wasteful. Mm-hmm. And then that coffee table has now become a symbol of lack, of scarcity. Oh. And that is a problem between the ears. That's why I brought in the intuitive part of my job, because everything that shows up out here, everything, whether it's what you're putting on your body, who you're choosing to hang out with, how you're decorating your house, even what job you're taking, and even what kind of bosses you're attracting or employees, it all starts with belief systems, with the self-talk that you're having, and sometimes a lot of that is just very unconscious. Right. I've been fascinated with the study of epigenetics. Are you familiar with that? Yeah, and so epigenetics is where things are actually encoded in your DNA. So any of these experiences that your grandparents, your parents, many generations back, can actually shift the DNA slightly, and those memories they're starting to show that there's a direct correlation to that genetic history and how you're approaching life. And so by working with that, I've helped some clients overcome some enormous hurdles and make some really quite dramatic shifts in their life. And then I use Feng Shui to anchor that new belief in their space. So powerful.
That's powerful. So I get the idea about the table. So if the table actually was just, you love the table because it's a great table and it wasn't anything else, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But when you put all this other sideline stuff to it, like I might never have another one, and that's when it changes and shifts its value.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if you took that same table and you enhanced it, maybe painted it, transformed it somehow, that's a different story, because then you're like, okay, this is a great craft project. That's enhancing your creative abilities.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if it's still super dinged up from the time that you first picked it up and you didn't do anything to it, it's a little bit of stagnant energy.
I gotcha. Those are all good things. So Beverly, lasting words for our viewers on kind of just mastering their energy.
Well, first of all, the biggest thing is to really be aware of those days when you're not feeling yourself, and looking for those. Maybe there's some calendar triggers. Maybe there's you're coming up on your birthday. I mean, I don't know about you, but every year, even though I know my birthday's coming up, I start to get a little like, oh, I don't know, because it's like another year old. Actually, these days, having gone through the whole health scare, I'm like, bring on the birthdays. But I don't know of anybody who doesn't have a little bit of a childhood moment when they wanted a toy or they wanted something really bad and they didn't get it. And so there's that little bit of disappointment. And so for some people, that anticipation of disappointment begins to color the weeks preceding one of those days, one of those important days. But that's a...
Or maybe like mom or dad were divorced, and then knowing that dad was not going to make it for birthday, or mom wasn't going to allow dad to be there. So you have that type of balance as well, or that issue.
Yeah, those abandonment things.
You've been raised to believe that getting old is a bad thing.
Yeah.
By maybe the women in the family, and so you feel like you need to hide your age based on how you were raised. Interesting. So then you kind of start fretting it on the way to the date.
Right. And most of the time, you're not going to be conscious of it. It's going to come out in being more nitpicky with certain things, trying to almost pick a fight to allow you to just offload that negative emotion. Sometimes I look at people and they feel prickly, and I call them I refer to them as having porcupine energy, and they don't necessarily mean to be. They don't mean to be mean. They don't mean to be that kind of picky on you. It's just they are overwhelmed. They don't know how else to handle it. So for that, when I come across those kind of people, I try to be extra kind, because there's clearly something else going on that's deeper, and just a little extra kindness from me can help to blunt some of those quills. They're still going to be prickly to some other people, but that is how it is. But then again, you also when here's my thing about this. If you know that you're having one of those days, be aware of it, and so that when you come into a space and you know that you're already prickly, help people know how to deal with you. You may just say, look, I'm feeling really a little off today, just wanting you to be aware that don't take it personal, because that is helping others to understand how to work with you. Now that you've warned people, the opportunity exists for you to then take action steps, find somebody to work with, see how you can then get rid of those quills. Find a good coach, a good therapist, you know?
I like that. That was good.
Yeah.
I like that. My dog can have prickly energy sometimes. If he doesn't want to get hugged, he gives that prickly energy. It's like a porcupine. But then he can be the sweetest. But if he doesn't want to be touched, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Very powerful stuff, Beverly. I look forward to having you come back on if you want to.
I'd love that.
Awesome.
Love that.
Awesome. Well, I'm not going to go out and paint the door right now. I just got it really cool. I just got it stained. You'll have to check it out. But it is kind of a red stain. So I'll have to look at that.
Nice.
So I really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I really, really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
You have such great energy. I'm so grateful that we've connected.
Me too.
Yes.
And I look forward to more videos. We'll be putting out more information to you because I think this is stuff that's very interesting. It can really help us change our lives. It can add to our success. It can take away some of that anger, resentment, those types of things, that stagnant energy. But it also just allows us to understand ourselves better. And so anytime we can understand ourselves better and our environment, well, you know, that's awesome. That's more powerful and it's more success for us. Thank you, Beverly. I look forward to having you back in.
Yes.
In the meantime, think about the energy in your house. Think about the stagnation in the house. Look at the place. Does it need to be clean? Can you kind of tidy things up? Can you get rid of some of those old papers? Can you clean out from underneath that bed? Just looking at the clutter and helping that can really make some changes, as well as just getting that energy in there, having some fun, and just putting some music on and having fun while you're doing it can also be very powerful as well. Hope this information has helped you. Please share this video with your family and friends and anybody that you know would be interested in this. And don't forget to live your true life.
Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you.